I rented the museum conservation lab after hours. What the UV light wrote on our skin. I didn't rent the conservation lab because I care about art more than air. I rented it because ultraviolet light tells on everything, and I was tired of pretending varnish counts as truth. The City Museum sits on a hill that pretends to be history. If you donate enough Saturday mornings hauling crates and not giving speeches, people with keys remember your hands. Last winter I helped the head conservator coax a sulking fume hood back to life with a hex driver and patience. So when I texted her just before midnight, she answered like someone who trusts results, not romance. 1 hour, me said. Work lamps on low, UV box is calibrated. Don't open solvent cabinets without me. And learn the hard way, no trials after 2. She laughed like a person who has watched reputations yellow under daylight. At 11:39 p.m. my phone performed the sentence my marriage knows by muscle memory. Loadout ran late, quick debrief became a drink, might crash at the office. Don't wait up. Nora doesn't lie, she arranges. She persuades donors to love libraries and pallets to forgive asphalt. We have been excellent at logistics and stingy with appetite for a year, which is another way to say we're good citizens and bored lovers who haven't admitted we're bored. Then the operations lead arrived, the kind these stories invent even when there isn't budget, gaffer in a tote, posture like a promise. His name is Rylan. He stands exactly one respectful step from married women as if a city ordinance drafted his patience. In daylight, I admire him. After midnight, my neck votes differently. Security buzzed me in through the loading dock. The lab glowed clean as an untroubled conscience. Stainless benches, white drawers with labels that make lawyers proud, a cradle for paintings that remember war like it was gossip. The UV lamps slept in their metal nest, a patient lie detector. Bottles labeled with Latin lined up like small, expensive verdicts. Over everything, the low, steady rush of filtered air pretended to forgive whatever it found. They came up the freight elevator at 12:06. Nora first, hair pinned in the particular geometry that competence requires, heels in one hand because competence also learns when to surrender. Rylan behind her, sleeves shoved, tote at his hip, eyes doing the perimeter accounting that keeps other people's nights from becoming depositions. He saw me first. Men who lift after midnight learn to locate husbands the way electricians find ground. He halted just inside the threshold with palms visible, a ritual that turns decent men into furniture that does not ask for lines. You rented me a science room, Nora said, smiling with one side of her mouth. That's very you. I wanted a place where light keeps receipts, I said. Say it where varnish can't flatter. Rylan looked at the laminated safety sheet about toluene like it could baptize him. Need me? He asked her, not me. I need you exactly there, she said, pointing to the bright strip of tape that keeps bodies out of laminar flow. If I want less distance, I'll use nouns. He obeyed. Good men do. It keeps them employable and difficult to hate properly. I set 2 paper cups on the edge of the bench and took a deep breath that smelled faintly of cotton and possible regret. Say it, I told her. In an elevator, she said, because fate syndicates its worst scripts. 2 weeks ago, between floors and nouns, I kissed him quick, mint, rehearsal. He stepped back. He said my name like a lock. I hated him for being exactly what he needs to be, and I hated me for liking that he was. Tonight I almost followed the part of me that loves doors. I came here. Do you want me to hit him? I asked, hearing how even the offer was an audition for a role I don't want. I want you to choose me, she said, not rescue appetite. The lab listened the way machines listen, without opinion but with memory. I pulled the dust cover from a small portrait me had left for us, The public would never see it again until its skin was future-proof. A woman in a dull gold dress stared into someone else's century. I wheeled the UV cart out, lowered the hood, and flicked the switch. Light bloomed the color of quiet bruises. Nora stepped closer, bare feet soft against rubber mats. The painting changed like a person deciding to stop lying. Old retouches fluoresced a tired blue. Hairline cracks traveled the face like the kind of stories families keep. A ghost signature glowed faintly where an apprentice made a brave mistake and the master painted over it. "Look," she said, stepping into the violet. "Underpainting." "It's what people meant once," I said, "before they worried about how it would read." She stood with the UV singing over her, and for a long breath we watched honesty happen to something that couldn't defend itself anymore. I reached and set my hand at the back of her neck, my thumb in the little notch I've kept for emergencies that should be pleasures. Her eyes closed like a vote that wanted minutes. I kissed her, jurisdiction, not apology. She answered like a woman who had been a plan all day and needed 4 minutes to be something other than competent. My other hand slid along her ribs to the honest line of her waist where fabric is the only law I trust at this hour. I stopped because rules are useful furniture when solvents are near. She took my lower lip between her teeth and laughed against my cheek, the sound that bought me through last February without garnishing our hope. "Do you still want to hit him?" she asked, voice soft enough to respect the cart. "I want to thank him for stepping back," I said, "and I want to owe him nothing else." "That I can eat," she said, and leaned her forehead to mine for the small beat that recalibrates a life. We watched the blue sing in old varnish. The UV shows every fingerprint, grease a previous conservator left when a rumor distracted her, a diagonal drag where a restorer had reattached a flake of face. "Tell me the worst thing you almost did," she said. "I drove to the motel with the orange doors," I said. "Sat with a key I didn't ask for until the brass looked like a bad idea rehearsing. I laughed myself home. I wanted a story more than a life and forgot which one you can sleep in. I went to a lobby and drank water until the mirror stopped auditioning," she said. "I almost sent you proof because proof sometimes pretends to be love. I deleted drafts and asked for a room with better lighting." From the doorway, Rylan cleared his throat in the polite key that keeps vans on schedule. "Loadin' at 9, he said to the floor. "We need 4 backs and 0 speeches." "Coffee on me," I said, which meant thank you for being the adult and also please keep being someone I'm not required to forgive. He didn't move. He let the tape do its job and made himself into a hallway you could trust. I clicked off the UV and brought up the warm, useless work lamps that make everything look like daytime pretending to be kind. The portrait went back to lying politely. Nora pressed her palm flat against the glass of the hood, as if she could keep the honesty from evaporating. "Invite me when you're interesting," I said, "not just when danger pretends to be charm." "I'm inviting you," she said, "now." We moved to the light table. I slid a sheet of tracing film over the printout me had left, a map of cracks like a city afraid of rain. I picked up a pencil and at the lower margin where nobody sensible would look, wrote small, "Choose before the elevator does." She took the pencil from me and wrote along the inside of her wrist where the lab wouldn't notice. "Appetite, not theater." I kissed the ink dry and the filtered air carried the story away like a rumor it refused to repeat. We kept our clothes. We kept our life. We made heat that could walk out through a freight elevator without borrowing grace. The lab hummed like a witness that saves its memory for court, not gossip. "Do something foolish," she said, "but survivable." I flipped the switch on the raking light, the cruel low strip that tells you what a surface has refused to confess. We tilted the portrait and watched ridges stand up like mistakes with spines. "That's the thing," I said. "You have to light from the side if you want to see depth." "Then stand at my side tomorrow," she said, "under fluorescence, when the room wants me to be a system more than a person." "Yes," I said, "and put your hand exactly here when the spreadsheet thinks it gets a vote." I set my thumb to the notch again, and she exhaled in a way that taught the ventilation how to breathe. She told me small truths, that her shoulder hardens when the room starts treating her like furniture, that she's tired of the calendar being the only thing that touches her every day, that she wants my mouth in a lobby lit like regret. I told her mine, that I count stairs when I'm scared, that I have been building a list of rooms where floors don't lie, that I am ready to be generous instead of merely good. The clock above the solvent cabinet clicked 1 minute forward like a tiny judge. I covered the painting, turned off the raking light, and let the lab resume its impersonation of mercy. We stood in the dim and practiced being people instead of roles. A text buzzed, "Me, you have 15. The UV box needs her beauty sleep. Also, gloves off before you touch your face, sweethearts." "Tell me if we're ridiculous," Nora said. "Absolutely," I said, "but not wrong." We cleaned up. Gloves to the bin, film rolled, pencil back in the drawer that says marking TOOLS as if permanent choices have a container. I wiped our fingerprints off the bench and intentionally left one thumbprint near the aluminum base of the UV cart where a rag won't find it. Not for anyone except us. Not even for the story. Just a quarrel with oblivion we can afford. On the way out, we paused in the long gallery where statues practice not blinking. The motion sensor took a second to decide we existed and then washed the marble with approval. "Do you still hate him?" she asked, meaning Rylan. "I hate how employable his decency is," I said. "I like how it keeps rooms safe. I don't want to become interesting by inventing villains." "Good," she said, "because I want you to be interesting for free." The freight elevator complained us downward. The night outside had chosen a temperature and a story it liked. We walked the block to the car without trying to decide whether the sidewalk approved. She pressed 2 fingers to my wrist, daylight legal, and something reliable found its place behind my ribs. At 9, the community center smelled like lemon spelling competence. Rylan was already stacking tables with the modest inevitability that teaches gravity manners. I carried the other end and let sunlight higher my posture. Nora moved through the room with a clipboard, and a mouth volunteers obey without punishing themselves. When she passed me, she touched the ink on her wrist with 2 fingers, and the morning selected us without speeches. On break, I set a coffee by Rylan's elbow. "Thanks for being the adult in the elevator," I said. "Thanks for booking a room where the light doesn't lie," he said, eyes on the coil of cable he was teaching to behave. He didn't ask for absolution because he hadn't applied for guilt. We loaded the van without theater. Tape squealed. A case confessed and forgave itself. A list folded into a pocket and decided to be done. Gravity agreed to be negotiated for one more day. We didn't tell anyone about the lab. We taped a cotton swab, clean, righteous, to the side of our fridge under the magnet shaped like the ridiculous boat we bought one summer we didn't ruin. Sometimes, when the apartment auditions for courtroom, we turn off the overhead and hold a phone light low across the kitchen table until the scratches stand up, and we remember who made them and why. Sometimes she texts come and means stand next to me while I bend a room into competence and beauty. Sometimes I text come and mean watch me be a body before I become a plan. Sometimes we take a friend who thinks proof is love to the museum on free day and show them the little wall card about underdrawings. The lines artists laid down when they were still hungry, still deciding. We didn't stop admiring other people's competence. We did stop confusing it with permission. Heat is a temperature, not a verdict. UV is a witness that loves nobody and helps everybody who wants to see. We eat before we try to win. We sleep when the clock loses its manners. We put our hands on each other in daylight like the sun still issues licenses. And when the gossiping part of the city asks whether we have anything to add, we say we rented the room where truth fluoresces, kissed under a light that refuses to flatter, wrote small words where a rag won't find them, choose before the elevator does, appetite not theater, and left before 2 because that's the law now. Return the key at the dock. Thank the air for remembering its job. Let the varnish yellow somewhere else while we make our own underdrawing, bolder than we were and honest enough to survive the next cleaning.